All right. Good morning and welcome to our Creative Operations Report Fireside Chat. I'm Molly Clark, the Senior Director of Marketing at Lytho. For over 5 years, we've put out variations of the Creative Operations Report, diving into the inner workings of in-house creative teams and taking a look at the challenges, the pain points that those teams are having, and layering in advice, tips, and tricks from industry thought leaders that have experienced it all. In our most recent report that we're focusing on today, we really wanted to dig into the relationship between the creative teams and its stakeholders, primarily focusing on the disconnect in communication and zoning in on areas within the relationship and collaboration and where we can help to make some improvements there. Today, I'm joined by our report contributors, so I'm very excited about this, and so that we can hear directly from them. They're the experts in this, and so we're excited to hear any advice, tips, tricks that they have about their relationship with their stakeholders. So welcome, and let's dive right in. So let's first start with going around and quickly letting you guys introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Kaylee Lonsinger with the Oklahoma City Thunder. I'm the manager of marketing services, brand operations, and I've been with the team for 15 seasons.
Good morning. My name is Rachel Regnier. So if you're reading the lower third, it doesn't look anything like it's spelled. I'm going to apologize right now. I am the leader of creative services at Arizona Public Service, which is the largest investor-owned utility in Arizona. I've been here for 6 years in a few different roles, dealing with stakeholders in different capacity. And before I got here, I was the director of production at the Arizona Coyotes. I worked in Los Angeles and was a promo editor. So I've worked in all different fields of production, but what I've found is very consistent is it's dealing with stakeholders is pretty much the same no matter what part of the industry you're in. So thanks for having me today.
I'm Emily Blake, Senior Director of Project Management for the Purdue for Life Foundation. We are a part of Purdue University that specializes in alumni engagement, events, and giving, and I've been here for just over 13 years.
I'm Rebecca Toole. I'm the Director of Project Management at the Purdue for Life Foundation, and I have been here for about 2.5 years.
And I love that you guys get to do this together in the same room. I know that we're kind of all back to hopefully getting to go back into the office and stuff, but I get so excited when I get to see people like actually working together and collaborating in person. So let's dive right on in with some of these burning questions and topics. So the first kind of question I want to throw out to you guys is, what strategies have you guys used in the past to bridge the gap between the creative team and its stakeholders?
We can start. One of the things we do is, of course, nobody loves a meeting necessarily, but productive ones are good. So we try to do launch meetings with bigger projects with our stakeholders. We'll bring in the members of the creative team that will be working on that project as well as the stakeholder and any of their counterparts, just to get all on the same page about a project that's coming up. And then for some of our really bigger events, we'll do recurring meetings, just sort of regularly scheduled check-in meetings to make sure everyone is good to go and everything's working well. We also have started sharing reports with stakeholders. So within Lytho, we will create a report on a project or a campaign. And then of course we can decide what fields we want to put in that report that the stakeholder can access. So we'll build out a report, click that share button, share it with the stakeholder, and then they can go in at any time and see the live feed basically of kind of where things stand in the project. And I think that those things have really helped kind of that transparency, that they can see into our world a little bit and see how things are going.
Emily, I think you hit the nail on the head about transparency. So I was brought in 5 years ago for this specific role, but I have been with the organization, as I said, 15 seasons in other positions. I was a stakeholder. I felt the frustrations. And what I realized was there is a lack of understanding about requesting projects or what needs were and what a process was. So the new inside salesperson comes in, they have a graphic need. They do not have a marketing background, and there was not that knowledge base that they are essentially writing a creative brief when they're making a request. They may not know the type of assets we have available. They're so green to everything. And so I came in, jaded is not the word, but I had my own frustrations, and our team kind of had the perception of that we could be difficult, that we like to say no. But in reality, it was just an education piece. And that was kind of the strategy going in, is how can we get everyone on the same page? Because we can't expect someone to follow a process or understand how to go about the graphic side if they've never been experienced in that area. So we have started at the top. We have a how-to document for Lytho and the way we do requests, why we're asking the questions we ask. We make sure that if it's anything like a campaign or large scale project, we will have a tip-off meeting. We make sure we have a designer in the room and some of the decision makers so we can get that information on the front end. Anytime there's a new hire, my team will also make an effort to go train them on Lytho, walk them through their first request. Then from there, our goal is to really allow the creatives to do just that, be creative. We want to come alongside these requesters to bring their creative vision to life. And we found if we can strip some of that administrative task and pressure off the designers, they can really focus in and provide their best work. So our goal is to get all the details up front, where my team's the one that will run someone down, get what we need. And we also help with the vendor and ordering relation side. And we found if we take that approach, as well as the reporting structure weekly to management, that it has led to greater success, because we did not track projects until 5 years ago and really see how we're doing things. So I found a new respect very quickly in an understanding that I thought a project could be done in a week, a simple project, and no, it goes through so much more, and there's such intentionality behind it and so many people involved to approve that project. So it's an education piece, aligning timelines, because what it might be when you start discussing something may not align with our timeline that we need to produce our best work.
Yeah, I'm going to say yes to all those things. And in addition to that, so we service both internal and external stakeholders. So we have 6,000 employees. So we don't really want anybody that works at the company to log into Lytho and just be like, I want a poster. So what we've done is we've got business partners that work specifically with different groups. So if someone from our transmission and distribution team wants an asset, they work with their business partner, who's kind of a go-between initially for us for the request. So they handle that first line of defense of like, what's your goal? What do you need? What kind of things? Where are you going to put it? What are you going to do with it? And then they come to us to strategize what's the best tactics? How can we help deliver? That's just step one. Beyond that, if we need more follow-up, we'll do a direct meeting with the client so we can make sure we're involved in the conversation. But having that one person in between to kind of help filter the requests and make sure everything going into our system is correct and the deadlines are right and the collateral is what it needs to be helps us kind of make sure we're going to ensure success right as the project's even kicking off.
I love that. And I love that, some of the commonalities across what you guys have all done is even in kind of this quasi virtual world that we're still living in. We always say, make sure you're collecting all of the information on the briefs, which yes, it's so important. You guys are all talking about, let's also have a conversation. Let's make sure that there's this understanding and really, let's not be so siloed and separate. Let's come together at the beginning and make sure that we have this alignment. They're not, our creative teams are not just order takers, they're part of this process. So by, really bringing people all together into a full conversation, it seems to really kind of help to bridge that gap a little bit, which also then kind of touches on the next question. And I do want to mention to everyone, feel free to also use the chat Q&A box to, if you have any questions for our contributors, feel free to ask them. This is, very conversational and we want to hear from you. So pop those questions in and we'll get them as well. But I also, so you have these kickoff meetings, you're collecting all of this information from the beginning, but are there any other steps that you take to ensure that stakeholders really understand the creative process and how it can impact that final deliverable?
Yeah, we actually just had a kickoff for a new logo design for one of the departments within our company. which was a big deal. We don't design logos willy-nilly. That's not something people can just put a request in for in Lytho. We just make a logo. So we had a lot of conversations, and one of the biggest ones was to really level set with what the process was, because this department isn't somebody that works creatively with us a lot. And I didn't want them to think that on a Friday they're going to put in a logo request and by next week they'll have something ready to go and roll out and put it on a shirt. So we had to meet with a few people in that department and talk about just really what the process is, not even getting into like, what does your logo want to look like? What are your goals? This was strictly, when are you going to see the first look? And after that, how's it going to happen? And what's going to happen before it gets to you? And who's going to review it? So that kind of request involves a lot of review internally on our team to make sure we're on brand and everything is doing what it needs to do for our side of the business. But then once it gets to them, it's got to go all the way up to the vice president and sometimes even the CEO to make sure, hey, are you good with this? Because this is something that could be external facing. You can see it on a shirt. You could see it somewhere in some of our collateral. So he was very appreciative of the fact that, like, yes, I get it. I appreciate you telling me, because I just didn't want him turning around and being like, I asked for this a month ago and I still haven't seen anything. What are they doing? So we laid it out in very specific terms. What's happening week 1? Where will we be week 2? You might not hear from us till week 4, but here's what we're doing from point A till we get to you. So you know what's happening behind the scenes. And when we did finally get to him with the first look of here we go, we had 14 versions we reviewed and we narrowed it down, and we had to get review from our director and all the external comms people. And once it got to him with 4 versions for his team to choose, he was very appreciative that he kind of knew what happened before it got to him. So that made it a little bit of an easier of a process.
Something we've implemented after my first year in this role is, with basketball, there's this off-season period. So it's a little bit of a cool down. Still very busy, still prepping for that next year and what's to come and what's happening. But we make an intentional effort to meet with the stakeholder leads, so the directors of team, whoever kind of oversees those departments, our power requesters. We come with our list of, we know these projects happen every year. Here's the ones I know we had some tension with. You know, our bad here, your bad there. How can we make it better? You know, when are you approaching this timeline? So we align our timelines in the off season as best we can. We also are able to ask, you know, is this still a project you're going to do? Is it relevant? Is there something new, or are you going to do it different? And we found if we have those in the off season, with the way our budget cycle works in preparation, it just allows us to act in such a more connected way. And we'll probably use the word siloed quite a bit in this group, because that is a real struggle within these types of industries. And there's different creative leads and teams in my organization, because it's an entertainment business at the end of the day, sports entertainment. So there's an on-court component, what happens outside in the community, brand expression from there. But that is something that's really helped our team, is just to get everyone together and have that open communication channel, have that dedicated time and be proactive, pull reports, you know, have conversations on the back end. If there's been major failings, it's not going to help in the moment. If there's a fire drill and something's messed up and you want to go harass someone, that never happens. Approach it with grace and kindness, and we can look at the learnings afterward, get the fire out of the way. And that has just kind of made us stronger moving forward.
One thing that we have been doing with our stakeholders that we think has really helped them kind of see our process is when we have new stakeholders to onboard during their training meeting, we not only walk them through the request and review process, but we also show them a real life project that they wouldn't normally be able to see. And so we kind of explain to them the process that, for example, when they request one email, it's not just one task, it's 5 or 6 or 7 tasks for our team. It's the banner, it's the copy, it's pulling the data, all of that stuff. So they kind of understand why we set kind of the lead times that we do. And because our team does work for the entire organization, we've started sharing the number of like open projects we have. I think that helps them kind of understand, hey, we are not only serving your department, we are serving 12 other departments, and this is how much we have going on all at once. So that kind of helps them gauge like, okay, they're not just working on my project this week, they're working on my project and everybody else's project all at once.
Yeah, I had this aha moment when I started the role in creative services, because before I worked on the social team for a while and for employee comms. So I was very much siloed. I was in those silos. And when I came over here, my department services everybody. So I had this moment where I'm like, oh my God, everybody's one big project that they spend all year prepping for. They think that we do too. And everything we do leads up to this one project. Meanwhile, every project in the company is coming at you at the same time. So it is hard to manage their expectations because they've been working on this one thing all year and it's the most important thing ever. And you can't just say, hey, guess what? You're in line and you're pretty far at the bottom right now. But it's a balance between making them feel like they're, a very unique client and you're here to serve them. Meanwhile, doing that for 12 other projects coming at the exact same time. So I totally feel that.
Treat them like a person, not a number. It goes a long way.
Yeah, I love this, and like kind of the pulling back of the curtain and really letting people see what that process is so that they understand all of those steps, because it is an unknown. Like if you were to ask me like what our CFO does, I don't know. You buy, sell, I don't know. You click numbers. And so to really kind of pull back that curtain and show what that process is. I love that you guys are kind of all pulling the stakeholders into that and giving them that visibility, treating them like a person and showing, that here's everything we have to do. So you guys understand all of these different steps. And there's really that, full understanding, or not full understanding, but starting to understand that it's not just, let me quickly Photoshop this and you'll be good to go. So we do have a question from the audience. Does anyone share a report including all of their project tasks, the statuses, and due dates with their requesting stakeholders? Little reports.
We share it by project. So like one of our conferences that we put on, I'll create a report and then share that with the lead event planner, or someone on our engagement team that is heavily involved with the project, so they can see it, just that event. So I don't do like mass reports of everything we have going on. It's by event or by project or campaign.
We do when there's an issue. Like if we're having trouble we have a lot of recurring projects that happen monthly or bi-monthly. If we're having trouble receiving assets on the timeline that has been established, and it kind of rises up to some higher level people that aren't really involved in the process, we use that to educate them on, this is why we need it so early, because all these things have to happen in order for us to get it to the print shop, to get it executed and sent out to customers in time. So we do it as a learning tool to show them this is the why behind our ask to get this on this date. When this doesn't happen, then this doesn't happen, and then we miss this date. Or even worse, we then can like truncate our part of the project. So you get much longer, we get much shorter, and everyone else's timeline stays the same. So we don't do it for every client, but there are a few that have had problems in the past of hitting deadlines, and we use it to kind of show them the why behind we need it when we need it.
We all have kind of that special department that is a little more particular, maybe gives a little more challenges, and usually it's just due to lack of knowledge. And when that happens for us, we want to be transparent. And sometimes there's a game of telephone, not intentionally, but maybe someone's requested a project and it's trickled down and we've passed their deadline they gave us. And then it trickles up to that leadership member who has not been as involved, but it's in that person's oversight. And it could be a number of reasons as to why. And in those moments, we definitely want to pull the project. And it could just be that they requested on a Friday, they asked for it on a Monday. They asked after business hours on a Friday, and that's something that we just have a candidness with our leadership, our executive team, such an open door policy. I can approach you can approach anyone in our company. And so we're able to have directed conversations and adult conversations to make sure we're working together and trying to achieve the goal, and then tweak our process where we need. So those are kind of the moments we pull those type of more extensive reports. And it's just for the sake of trying to help one another. And then also, if it is on our team, we're falling behind, we want to make sure and give priority where we can, or maybe discuss perhaps why certain items have been toggled elsewhere. And in those moments, if we've been not given enough time or the pressure's been put on us, then an alternative may be, hey, we don't want to, but we'll have to give it to a freelancer, and this is X amount of cost. So that has helped curb behavior as well. When you're an in-house agency, it hurts the organization if you fall through on a project. We can't necessarily say no. So we try to just work in very smart ways and do communicate, but we also don't want to over inundate and overshare, because we've noticed that that's been an issue as well if we give them too much at once.
Oh, that's awesome. So as you guys are getting kind of projects set up at the very beginning, do you have any kind of tips or tricks to share about how you, as the stakeholder, you're having these kickoff meetings, they're filling out the brief and getting the information, but do you have any ideas about like a fail safe that you can put in to make sure that what they're asking for is aligned to their vision and their goals? Do they know the vision and goals of what they're asking for, and how to kind of navigate some of those conversations?
We actually just use that as kind of a tool to like not stop a request, but make them think about, is this really what we need? So we had a request for a video series because they saw something cool on ESPN that they wanted to emulate and do a whole series of very long videos. And we went, that's really cool. We love those videos too. What are your goals? Like when people watch these videos, what do you want them to do? Is there a call to action? Do you want them to feel a certain way? Do you want to educate them? And they're like, it's really cool. And we're like, we understand and we agree it's cool. But until you can tell us what your goals are, we can't just go create content because you think it's cool. We have to know the why behind it so that we can be impactful and really thoughtful in the content we create. And so we went, you go back and talk to your team and you come back and share your goals with us, and then we'll talk about next steps. And that was 3 months ago. And it has been a ghost town since then. So I don't mean to use that as like, hey, guess what? We're trying to like trick you into not requesting the content, but we want you to be thoughtful in the content as to why you're making it and what you want to do with it. And I think a lot of stuff is really cool too, but there's got to be a purpose and a why behind it for us to put the effort and the time and the resources into it. So what are your goals seems to be like our number one trip up question, because sometimes they just haven't thought of it that way. They just know they want it.
We use that too, the like, what's your why? Like, why? What are you trying to achieve? Is there something we've done before? What do you want people, the emotion to feel? And again, coming from the stakeholder side to this side, I didn't understand. And sometimes I was intimidated by those questions because we are very much a strategy based in everything we do organization. Like we're very thoughtful and we're very intentional with what we do. We know who we are. We know what we mean to the fans and what they mean to us. And here's our play box, like our sandbox. You can play within here, but anything outside, let's have a better conversation, because while it may be cool and hip on Instagram, it may not be for us or meet the desired goal that you wish to achieve. And it really continues to go back down to an education piece and knowing that people don't always come from this world and background. I'm evidence of that. I did not go to school for a marketing area or creative originally. I went for communication and services, and I was able to make a transition and kind of see things on this side and finally understand why all these questions are asked and how they can really help achieve the true goal behind something. Or like you said, Rachel, wade through that. Do we really need this? It's fun and cool, but it's not going to achieve anything. And it's now taken my designer X amount of hours away when we could have focused on your project you do need.
Yeah, talking about the goals, we currently do not have that on our request form, but it is something that we are in the process of adding because we have had so many things come up where people just don't know what they want, like everybody has said. And sometimes it could even be they want to add an extra email to an email campaign because they need X registrants at their event. And it's like, well, if we had known at the very beginning how many people they wanted at the event, it can help us help them to put together a better marketing plan for their email communications, social media communications. So when we know that from the beginning, it helps us out a lot. And I think one of the other places we run into that issue sometimes is with like photography. So we have photographers on our part of our marketing communications teams, and people are always wanting photography at their events. And we have very important questions in our request form that says, okay, what is this actually going to be used for? And sometimes the answer is just future marketing needs. And we have, sometimes we go down the road of, okay, we have plenty of this event. There's not necessarily a need, then that's something we can try to nicely scrap.
Yeah, we have a really robust request form. I think sometimes people get a little intimidated by it because we do put a lot of questions in there. None of them are hard, but there are a lot of questions, and we get close to the goal question in a few of our sections, like in our email section. It's like, what is the action you want the reader to take? Or like in a video, kind of like you said, what feelings do you want them to feel, or questions like that. But we don't ask the overall goal, why are we doing this? And so that is on our to-do list of adding that to our request form.
I know I just added that to ours because we usually have like, who are the audience, and like some of those types of questions, but like the actual goal and objective, because I can also see how that would be really beneficial as the project comes to an end, and as you are doing like a debrief or just seeing, how did this perform, you can always look back then at the brief, and these are the metrics, here's what we're trying to tie it back to, so I can see like that full loop there. So I think that's such a great idea. So now here's a fun question. What advice do you have when you have to say no to a stakeholder, or when they think that they know what they're asking for, but they don't really know what they're asking for?
We will try to bring in the experts. So, going back to the video or photo example, we may have a requester say that they want a 4-minute intro hype video or something for something. And we're like, let's do better. So we'll bring in our videography team, and they can kind of come up with their ideas, share their ideas with the stakeholder, and say, let's do this instead. So we're not saying flat out no, we're saying maybe here's a different approach or a different way that we can accomplish the same goal.
Exactly. We have a dedicated media strategist, and oftentimes what we have found, these type of requests are usually tied to wanting to place some type of ad or a buy, or I've seen this, let's do this type of video or capture. And what's great about what we have such a robust, I'm sure you ladies do as well, like back of house stats tools, how our social posts are performing, working closely with our social team. And that's usually where I've seen the trip up happen. So what we try to do is, say, we've seen this perform this way, that if this is your goal, here's an example of how we were able to approach it in an effective way. Here's what we see is working in the market now. We understand you have a passion and you think this is where we should go and what has worked before, but what has worked before does not work now. Today is a new day, and we have to continue evolving, always going onward and pushing forward. And having that dedicated media strategist and different kind of verticals within marketing has really assisted with that, because then those people really are able to target and talk in an intelligent way. And sometimes there will just be that person that'll say, no, this is what I want. And if it doesn't hurt or go with outside our brand parameters, we understand. And oftentimes if that has happened, we have the individual come back and go, you know what, you're right. And let's go ahead and approach it in a different way moving forward.
Yeah, we like to use a no but strategy. Like it's the opposite of yes and. Sometimes it's a no, but here's what we can do. If it's a bandwidth issue, we can't handle that request, but we can make sure that one of our approved contractors can help you, and we will help manage that process with you, because we obviously don't expect you to do that. Or it's no, but here's a better way that we think you can reach your goals, or here's a better way that you can communicate that, or here's something we already have that might do what you want it to do that you didn't know even existed in our library of content. So we don't ever really just know and walk away. That's just not, we can't, where service is in my department's name. So we're here to help however we can. So whether that's directing them to someone outside the organization that can help work within our brand parameters and create the content, or giving them alternative options. I did improv when I was younger, so it's yes and. So this is opposite of everything I've ever been taught. No, but I'm starting to embrace it.
Oh, that's so awesome. So here's another question from the audience. How do you share progress on projects while it's still in process with the stakeholders?
For us, we're not necessarily a large company. We have about 200 individuals collectively between our training ops facility and our business office. And thankfully for me specifically, I have the advantage of having been there long enough. I know a lot of these other individuals. We have a lot of original, have been here since the first season, and we've been able to lean into those relationships. And why I'm saying that is kind of knowing each person's style and the way they interpret information is key to me, because you have that person that they need that update each day, or you have that person that's like, I don't care, I don't want it, like, don't flood my inbox. So we really try to understand our requester and what is helpful to them, but we also make sure that we have very specific statuses. So like if it goes into proofing, it'll signify them, like once the designer starts working on it, it's in progress. So we have a lot of different statuses so they know, and we'll be able to use the dashboard to see that. We often will utilize Teams if we need to as well, to ping them in the moment or say, hey, just letting you know, we're still kind of struggling with getting this approved or this concept, and I don't want you to worry, but here's where we're at. So while we don't necessarily have like a specific report we pull or dedicated action for everyone, we really want to customize it to the requester in person. We found that to be more effective, and one size fits all is not true. It's one size fits one. And that's kind of the approach that we take.
I think what we do is kind of a lot of things we've already talked about with like trying with these bigger projects that we know people are going to want status updates. We go ahead and set up those meetings every week or every month, whatever it may be. And part of those meetings are always, okay, what is on the list for Marcom? And like going through each individual deliverable item and saying, okay, where is it in the process? Do we still need information from the stakeholders? Is it at print yet? Is it in the design phase? And then the other thing being those reports that we sometimes pull at the beginning of projects. We try as much as we can to help people help themselves. So if we know in some stakeholders, we have learned enough now that we know, okay, this is the person that is going to want a report of this, so they can just keep an eye on it the whole time. And so trying a little bit to have them have everything they can need so that they don't have to always come to us when they want a status update.
Yeah, and we build out our timelines in Lytho too, so anybody that's open to request with us can track as we go. I've got a consultant on my team. We call her the Lytho guru. She every morning meets with us to say, where are you at in your projects? Are you putting your assets on the server? Are you guys checking in with the clients? So that's happening within our team. And then outside of our team, we do a large scale communications morning meeting. Like since COVID started, it was actually before COVID, but we did it virtually, where we do a quick, it was called a stand up, but now it's not, because we're not standing and we're all doing it virtually, but we do that with everybody in the comms department. So those are usually the people that have open jobs with us, either the business partners or the communications people. So if they want an update, they can ask for it there, or we will give an update on, we're actively working on this. If I've got something I know is going into review within the next day or two, I might give them a heads up, hey, we're really close on that. You should see a review today or tomorrow, so that they know to expect it and set aside time to give feedback. But we're constantly talking to our comms teams so they can help kind of do that with their business partners and their clients. And then other than that, if they do really need to know, it should be up to date in our Lytho system.
One other thing is that it may seem redundant to the stakeholders, but we do a lot of proofing at every stage. So if we're going to send an email, the copy is written, the stakeholder gets a proof. The banner's created, the stakeholder gets approved. The email's built, stakeholder gets approved. So they kind of can follow along with the proofing as it goes, because we do want to make sure that they see it at every stage rather than getting to the end and then being like, this isn't what I had in mind, and all that work has been wasted.
That's a great segue. So one of the kind of key findings that we found within the report is that stakeholders felt like they were giving adequate information at the beginning of the project, and the creative teams felt a little differently, but I was surprised at how responsive people were about, yes, we do feel that there's a good amount of information there, but we did still see that rounds of review were still within that 3 to 5 rounds of review number, and that's still, you know, a little high and tricky, and can definitely be time consuming. So I know you guys are checking, you know, at each step throughout that like email creation and kind of having those check-ins. But what other kind of tips and tricks do you have as you are putting things through review and all of a sudden you're seeing a lot of feedback, and it's that moment of, oh no, there is definitely kind of that misalignment between what we're creating and the feedback that we're getting?
The way that we're structured, the first proofers are our lead creative individual and our director of brand identity. We would not want to show something to a client until it has met our standard that we have aligned it against the creative brief, but also our brand. And that is typically the one where we go through multiple revisions, but it is our direct team, and we know they're helping us to position the collateral piece. And we found by doing that step first, making sure it has been blessed by the brand individuals, and then going to the requester for that kind of next phase has been more effective and leads to less rounds of proofing with those other team members. And for some reason, if it's totally missed the mark, we go back and review the request, and there are times that perhaps the requester has changed their mind, or there's been a new variable and it's changed the need and the intent, and we kind of go back through that and work together again to kind of push it forward. We're always going to have multiple reviews with what we do. We have so many people involved in certain approvals because of the type of organization we are. And the thing that my team tries to do is we do try to wade through that. We do try to make sure that the designers have the right information so they don't feel like they're spinning their wheels. We tell them, wait until you have all the feedback from the different people in the project itself. Don't just start making changes, because you could change something and then the group decides, hey, actually this worked more effectively, and you've spun time around and wasted. And we're the ones in the background. We are the creative ninjas in the background, getting that information, fine tuning it, going back to the requester saying, here's kind of where we're at, here's where we're pushing or we're struggling, and then relaying that again to the designer. So we're always going to push forward and have a couple of revisions. That just is going to go with having great work, but it's also because we want to do the best to both align as well as bring that creative vision forward.
Yeah, and for us, some of the pain points aren't necessarily the process, it's the people. And I'm not saying that it's because new people come and people leave. So we get comfortable with the way things used to work. And when someone new comes in, we find that maybe the process had flaws that we didn't notice before because someone else just kind of did it. And now this new person doesn't know to do those things. So we have a monthly newsletter that we do that over the past few months it's rough. It's been tough. We went on revision 14 on one of them that is monthly content. A lot of it's repurposed content. So we kind of dug in and went, why is this happening? What seems to be happening over and over again? And we kind of put a halt on it and reset how we do it. So we realized that some of the people reviewing weren't looking at it until it was in layout. And we're like, those changes in copy and the kind of content we're doing should be making long before we get it. So that kind of backed up the process a bit. So they do a different review now process before it even gets to us, which has been fantastic. And we've just kind of changed the way we operate a little bit. We realized this new person either didn't have access to the character count. So monthly we were getting these really long articles that fit in these little tiny boxes. And that was at least 1 or 2 rounds of revisions just to size it right. So it isn't always necessarily the process. Sometimes it's just lack of, onboarding to a new person, or somebody new might come in and go, hey, why do we do it this way? And that might trigger us to think of new, better ways to work efficiently. So even when we have something where it's like clockwork and we get it every month, a little wrench in the thing can change how we operate. And now it's back to normal and we're ahead of the schedule. But there was a few months there where every month it was something different because of the people were all new. We had new leadership. We had new people. The best part was they were sending around PDFs and putting their notes in the PDF. And we're like, why aren't you in Lytho? If you all are in Lytho, you can see that you're all making the same notes on 3 separate PDFs, and then one per person has to aggregate all that data and put it into Lytho. So that's been a quick fix on most of it, where we were missing comments because they were doing it on a PDF. So Lytho has saved quite a bit of heartburn on my team. So we appreciate it.
Yeah, for our team, like Kaylee mentioned, Everything will go through our internal team before it ever gets to a stakeholder. So even if it's already on version 3, it might only be the first version that the stakeholders have seen. And then the other thing is Emily and I try to preach to everyone to keep as much in Lytho as possible, and keep all those comments so that they're in one place. But sometimes things get a little bit out of control, and bottom line is that it has to move to an email if there is so much disconnect, and we have to pull it back out of Lytho and say, okay, reevaluate, what's the goal, and then we can kind of go from there and move on into Lytho.
We have a status field to actually hold missing information or pause by requester. And so we will put it in a stage like that when we're missing information, when there's ambiguity that's happened. And we found if we kind of take that intentional step and like, hey, it's paused in our queue because we have to get through this together. There seems to be a fire that kind of gets lit under the different individuals to really make it be reactivated in our queue.
That's great. And it kind of ties into another question that we've gotten is, do your designers commonly add notes to proofs to provide that extra context, kind of that hand-holding? Internally, we call it like that creative rationale back over to your stakeholders.
Absolutely. My director, who's bomb, and she's all over the place, like having to proof stuff for the league and barely has time to eat her lunch each day, right? And then a proof comes across with a random graphic and she has no knowledge or idea of what that is. She's not seeing that request. She's not on those creative briefs. That's what my team's here for. That's what we're helping to kind of cut down on, her eyeballs having to see multiple things a day. So that is something we continue to work with our designers on, is providing that context. Here's what it is, here's what the ask was, here's what their goal to achieve was, and this is why I made this creative decision, or here are 2 different versions. Here's why I feel this one's the strongest of the 2. And also we make sure, like, when we task out, there's common tasks. It might just say like proof with brand ops and creative team, but then we have them also rename it once they start the task before they upload a proof with the project name. And that way it also will trigger our boss to understand what's now come through to her. And if it's something we need immediate attention, they will put hot in front of it with asterisks in all caps, because then that signifies to our bosses as well, drop everything, look at this.
That's great. I love when something's hot.
Yeah, we do something similar too, because you're right. As we do our own internal reviews before it even goes to our clients, like my boss I review everything. So I don't see every single request that comes into my team. But I review everything that goes out. My boss reviews everything that goes out. My boss's boss reviews some, not maybe all of the things that go out. And then it goes to the actual requester. So my director doesn't know who the audience is necessarily, or why this is so technical versus customer facing language, because maybe it's for a conference and not for a customer email. So we've just started adjusting that a little bit. The designers have always put notes in there if there's something they feel that they want to explain, because they know like that's got to go along with it. But we did just start making it a point to add anything from the request that might be pertinent, so that as you're reviewing, you won't feel the need to be like, well, this is not what we say, this isn't customer facing language, because that might not be the audience. So if there's a reason why we did things a little differently, we definitely want to note that, so that in the review, we don't have people make changes because that's just what they do. We let them know the why behind some of this stuff, so that maybe they'll realize, oh, we wouldn't have said it that way. So it's been very helpful to kind of give people a little more information into the request, because they can't see that when they go into Lytho. They don't have access, unless they're admins, into the what exactly is being requested. So the more information we can share, the easier a review process it's been.
That's awesome. And I think that is a great kind of ending point. We're right up at time. So I did want to mention just one quick housekeeping thing. As we continue, like I love these fireside chats where it is that conversation and we get to kind of build this community of how is everyone using Lytho, even outside of Lytho. Like these are such great tips that people can start implementing today of how can we connect and work better with different teams. I will say we're going to continue a lot of these conversations at Lythopia at the end of August. So anybody else that would like to join, please let us know and we'll get you that information. You will get to see Emily and Rebecca speaking live. So we're really excited about their session. And thank you all so much for coming today. Thank you to our contributors. This has been fantastic. I've definitely taken some notes on how even our internal process we can make a little bit better. So really enjoyed this conversation this morning. So thank you all, and we'll hopefully see you soon.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.